How dangerous were early laser developments in the 60s? Imagine a tiny beam of light powerful enough to burn through metal or pop a balloon from across the room. That was the early promise of laser technology in the 1960s. Lasers burst onto the scene in 1960 with a sense of wonder and excitement, capturing imaginations across science, industry, and even popular culture. But with this new technology came real questions about safety, questions that were only beginning to be understood as lasers moved from the lab into wider use. At their core, early lasers were devices that could produce an intense, narrow beam of light. This light was different from ordinary bulbs or flashlights because it was coherent, meaning all the light waves moved in step, and it could be focused to a very small point. That focus meant even modest laser power could deliver a lot of energy to a tiny area, making them potentially hazardous to eyes and skin. If someone looked directly into a laser beam, it could cause serious damage, including permanent injuries or burns. In the early 1960s, most lasers were experimental, built by researchers in universities and corporate labs. Safety standards as we know them today did not exist. There were no formal rules for handling lasers, and the risks were not always clear. People working with lasers sometimes took precautions, but these were often improvised and varied from place to place. The public was fascinated by the idea of lasers as futuristic weapons, and newspapers often speculated about their potential to become death rays. Scientists demonstrated their power by popping balloons or burning holes in paper, which added to the mix of real science and science fiction. As lasers became more powerful and more common in research and industry, the need for safety measures became obvious. By the late 1960s, simple safety devices called interlocks started to appear. These were basic mechanisms, like a switch on a door, that would turn off the laser if someone entered the room. But these systems were primitive, and there was no universal standard for laser safety. Accidents did happen, especially eye injuries, because the concentrated beam could cause permanent damage before anyone realized they were in danger. Military interest in lasers was high from the start. Governments on both sides of the Cold War saw potential for lasers in weapons, communications, and surveillance. The United States invested heavily, hoping lasers might become the next big leap in military technology. However, the idea of a laser as a death ray remained just that, a concept in science fiction. Real-world weapons applications were limited by the technology of the time, and most laser work focused on measuring distances, guiding missiles, or scientific research. For everyday life, the dangers of lasers in the 1960s were mostly confined to labs and specialized industries. The average person was unlikely to encounter a laser outside of a science demonstration or a news report. Grocery, store scanners, and laser pointers were still years away. To most people, lasers symbolized the future, a sign of how far science had come and how much further it could go. Looking back with a touch of nostalgia, early lasers were both a source of real concern and a symbol of progress. They were dangerous enough to demand respect and caution, but exciting enough to inspire visions of what technology might achieve. The mix of genuine risk and futuristic promise made lasers one of the iconic innovations of the 60s, reflecting the era's faith in science and its curiosity about the unknown.